Howdy folks, welcome back. We're just here on the reloading bench tonight actually, nearly midnight. We're on the old Rock Chucker Supreme here. Actually it's the RC2 I believe, one of the older ones, but still the same good old Rock Chucker. Anyways, we are running some 223 today, and as you can see it looks a little differently colored than you might be used to seeing. And this was one time that weird purple Winchester training ammo you might have seen. So I got a whole bunch of this with some range pickup once, and I set it aside, and since I wet tumbled it, it all turned kind of black and gray. And this is where we're at now. So I'm gonna have this kind of set aside for a kind of cool, unique load, maybe, I don't know, it just kind of looks neat, but we actually have to finish testing our Shooters World Shootout series, and then the winner of that, I'm just gonna load up a whole freaking boat ton of them, and that's what's going in these. And so you might be seeing, I've got way too much lube on these cases. I've been using the, where did it go? We've got our homebrew alcohol lanolin mixture. It's actually dripping everywhere. I just made this batch up here. It's like a tenth or 10 to 1 basically lanolin to alcohol. You want as high percentage alcohol as you can get. That way it evaporates and all you're left with is the lanolin on your cases rather than water and whatever is mixed in there. But I've got a towel. No, it's rather an old shirt, and I'm just kind of wiping the shoulder off here every once in a while, and that'll keep from leaving indentions and you know, boogering up your necks there. I'll do a few here and show you where it pools up. You can see some of the lanolin there. We'll do a few, it'll kind of cake up and it'll start to leave indentions in your brass, which is not the end of the world. Actually, it'll fire form right out, but it's easily preventable if you just wipe the shoulder off before you run it. So as long as the inside of your mouth is lubed up and kind of around the body of the case there where it's actually being sized, especially since we're in a small base die, you want to make sure you have lube in those spots but not your shoulder. So it only takes an extra second to wipe them down and prevent that. And really you don't have to do every single one of them. Maybe every couple, 2 or 3, you can just wipe off real quick. And it shouldn't be an issue. But this stuff is dirty. There's all this gunky stuff. I've had to clean my die out already a few times. But hopefully, you know, once these necks are nice and cleaned out and I get this stuff done and processed this first time, subsequent firings shouldn't be so tedious. And you can tell it was definitely Winchester ammo because they used that super heavy Lee factory crimp die right out of the gate. And I've actually seen a couple of these that were split after you size them. When you come back off that expander ball, yeah, see all this, I don't know, it's like whatever coating they use is coming off and it's collecting in the die and it's pretty gross, so you got to make sure to keep that cleaned up. But yeah, that expander ball comes out and it's actually pulling some of that gunk through the neck with it, and it's split a few of them that I've seen, so make sure to inspect here during your processing and prep work. That way when you go to load it up, you're not like, hey man, this one doesn't work. So we're looking for dents, cracks, splits, anything along the case head. If some of them are too hard to size, I've had a few of them. Yeah, I've got these set aside because they were not working. The case heads are either they got bulged out or ripped or something from whatever extractor was pulling on them. so they wouldn't fit in the case gauge. They were really hard to size. So I chuck them, and I just use a little pair of, you know, little wire cutters or something to just pinch that so I know it's no good, and I'll throw that into the recycling bin when I'm done. But as you see here, all these other ones size perfectly. They fall right in and out, and these cases are really short from the factory, so I don't have to do any trimming this time, which is awesome. Speaking of trimming, I was sorting a bucket of Lake City brass, and I saved the very longest piece that I could find, 1.780. And if you've reloaded any 223 or 556, you know the trim length, the maximum case length is 1.760. So I took the 1.80 and I tried chambering it in all three of my guns. That's two different uppers and a bolt gun. And I was easily able to close the bolt on all three of them. So what that means is if I want to be really lazy for bulk spamming 55 grain, whatever range food, you can pretty much never trim almost indefinitely. Like, I don't know how much more throat room I have in those chambers, but 1.78, that's 30 thousandths over the starting spec. Because 1.76 is the max. We're 20 thousandths over that, and 30 thousandths over the actual trim 2 length. So aside from irregular crimps, if you were taper crimping, I'm going to use the factory crimp dies, so that should be less of an issue. But aside from the crimping, the only difference I can see is you might have, I guess, not more neck tension as far as grabbing the bullet this way, but you'll have more surface area holding the bullet, keeping that friction fit. So that'll probably cause some ignition irregularities. But I'm thinking again, you know, 50 to 100 yard blasting ammo. You know, I'm essentially, in my mind, this is as cheap as 9mm or, you know, something like that. It's going to be as, you know, a small powder charge to save on powder, be economical. And it's not going to be super high velocities. It's not super high pressures. We're going to try and extend our brass lives, you know. Still getting a couple dents every once in a while, but we'll just keep rinsing them and wiping them off rather. But overall, this weird purple, once purple brass is turning out pretty well. And I actually broke off one of those decapping pins yesterday because I previously wet tumbled these. So that's how I got off most of the gunk. Obviously the necks on the inside. The super small diameter makes it hard for those stainless steel pins to actually do it. So I bet the flake media, that would work really well. But anyways, I broke one of these pins because there was a stainless steel pin stuck in here perpendicular in the case. And I went right about here. And I was like, man, that's a little tough. You kind of come out again, you try again. Went a little further, and then it just snapped. This little hardened steel thingy there. I done broke a pin. Anyways, as you can see, the alcohol lanolin mixture is freaking golden. And it's really cheap. This little bottle of lanolin, I think, was not $10, and I've had it for 2 or 3 years, and I've done probably 10,000 cases worth of prep work. And that's just 10 to 1 alcohol to lanolin. There are other brands that do that. I think that's what the Dillon case lube is just alcohol and lanolin. I think there's a Frankfurt Arsenal spray, there's an RCBS kind of spray lube. The Case Slick, I believe, is this mixture. But then there's other ones like the Hornady One Shot. That stuff, you know, think of it a bottle about this size, like this can of Duster. They're like $15 or $20 depending on where you're shopping for that bigger bottle of Hornady One Shot. but I guess the one shot is somewhat multi-purpose because you can use it to lube up your guns or your press or whatever, and it's also not harmful to your powder and propellants and your primers and whatnot, or they say that it's safe for all that stuff. So I guess the one shot is multi-purpose and safe on your components, so I guess that's a plus if you want to pay for that. But I hate the feeling of sticky, lubey cases when I go to shoot and when I'm loading them and whatnot, hence the gloves here. So after this, I'm going to tumble these again, dry tumble them, get the lube off. So I'm not leaving the one shot on, you know, which a lot of people do. They'll just run it through their Dillon, size it, run it, don't even worry about trimming, which again, I'm thinking about for my spammy stuff, bulk loading, cheap economy loads, you know, thinking about not having to trim. That one sounded a little squeaky. Case has a nice little dent on the shoulder, but that'll fire form right out. If you guys haven't seen, one of my oldest videos was titled, oh, this one's tight. There we go. It was titled something like, "Is this brass safe to shoot?" And I picked out like 20 of the ugliest pieces of brass that I could find. And we found and learned that pretty much all those little dents and dings and little boo-boos that you guys throw out, you think is trash, they just fire form right out and you can reload that brass again. Or worst case scenario, if you have a ding on your shoulder here and you shoot 300 blackout, chop that sucker off and reuse it for 300 blackout. I'm going to open this die up here when we're done and show you guys what kind of crap is collecting on this expander ball, because it's pretty gross. So I had to make sure to go pretty heavy on the lube, as you could tell. See, some of them are almost black. Some of them look like plain brass again underneath there. It's kind of cool. It's, ooh, yeah. And there we go. Yeah, this small base die. Ooh, see all this gunkiness? Got to make sure to clean the die out after this. But this small base die is pretty tight on some of this range brass. You never know what kind of guns they came out of, or what kind of sloppy chambers, or if it was you know, government training or whatever. They could be going auto, which have more open, sloppier chambers. That brass will blow out further. The only thing I have to complain about this rock chucker is that it sucks at catching primers. Anyways, small base dies though. It'll help you feed into any chamber. However, if you're sizing from any chamber, it could be doing a lot of work on the base of that case near the head. So depending on what gun it came out of and what, you know, if you're using a standard or small base die, you could be doing a lot of work here on this initial size, but I do like a small base die, at least the first time from this range brass, just to make sure. Although I remember several of you saying anecdotally, you've always used a standard die and you've never had a single issue. And honestly, it's probably just a marketing gimmick, unless you have an extremely tight custom chamber. I'm not certain that the small base die is super 100% required. But again, I'm sure there's situations, again with the custom gun, you might have a really tight chamber, a match chamber or something like that. Okay, we're getting some dents again. I need to remember to wipe off this excess. Yeah, that's not a big deal, but they're just ugly and I like my stuff to look pretty. So, just remember to touch that on your rag and wipe off any excess from the shoulder. Only got a few left here, and then we will pull this stem out and I'll show you how much of this crap gets stuck around that expanding ball. And there's another tight one. I don't want to jinx it, but I haven't stuck one yet. And I'm going pretty easy so I can feel, if it's tight, we can back out and ease it back in. Work it up and down a few times. We don't have to go all in one fell swoop. None of that nonsense. Oh yeah. No, YouTube, this isn't an instructional video. This is just a dummy talking. I'm just talking. I'm not teaching anything, so don't worry about that. We are not manufacturing small arms munitions in this video. That's not what is happening here. Ah, you son of a bitch! I just said that I hadn't stuck any too, so that's amazing. Well, it's really late, and I don't know if I have the patience to unstick this tonight, so I guess we're gonna have to wrap it up here. Now I can't get this out either to show you that expanding mandrel. Ah, shoot. Well, that's frustrating. But we're gonna be okay. We're gonna take a step back and catch our breath, and we'll work on getting that out tomorrow. It's no big deal. I actually have a stuck case removing tool because this is not the first time I've done this. Anyways, thanks for hanging out, folks. I really appreciate it. If you want to, you can help support the channel over on Patreon for as low as $1 a month. Everything goes back into the channel here so we can do stuff like unstick our dies with the tool that you shouldn't have to buy, but we are a dummy here, so this kind of stuff happens. Anyways, I really appreciate you guys. Thanks again. We'll see you on the next video. Have a good one. Okay, well, I managed to pull out this little stop here and punch the damn thing out the bottom. I could cut this out, but we ended up bending this here, so I'm going to have to end up getting a new decapping assembly. Not the end of the world. That was a stupid mistake. I'll take all the blame, but we've got our good, trusty, standard Lee sizing die here. And it still passes the case gauge. I don't care that it's not a small base, but yeah. These are going in much easier because it's not a small base, but look, we still pass the case gauge. So in the end of the day, I'm getting done what I need. I apologize for for getting upset, but we're able to finish up here. So not the end of the world. I just need to replace that silly RCBS expanding decapping rod unit now. And I'm just letting these primers fly all over the place like an idiot. Forgot to put the tray back on, but I've only got not 10 cases left, so we'll finish this junk up here. And I'll be done with this session, I suppose. So I guess I should have kept the camera rolling, but I was a little frustrated. But anyways, I have one more after this case. So in the end, not a bad day. These aren't super precision rounds, so I don't care that they're not bumped the exact amount. Because once again, they pass my case gauge. So they're going to work in my guns. I don't need to trim them. We're good to go. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.